Hi, everyone. My name is Jamie Fiorda. I'm the Vice President of Product Marketing for Talend, and I'm very pleased to have the opportunity to speak with you today. Today, we're going to talk about data health and Customer 360. So, it's no secret that Customer 360 is a critical initiative for many, many businesses. Business leaders understand that, and they also understand the urgency to modernize. So, I'm sure that all of you can relate. The pandemic made this very, very clear that businesses needed to have the flexibility and the ability to create the compelling, connected, and frictionless customer experiences rapidly and at scale. Um, Different companies want to do it for different reasons. Some are for marketing reasons to increase marketing efficacy. Some of them are so they can increase sales and see paths to revenue faster. Others, it's all about customer satisfaction and retention. And others, it's really just understanding customers so that they can innovate cross functionally and deliver the products and solutions that their customers want and need. And there's been a tremendous amount of innovation. Is this a chart from CIO magazine, and the data originates from IDC, but a tremendous amount of investment into this idea called digital transformation. Digital transformation is a very large bucket that includes everything from cloud to AI and a lot of things in between. But the intent of these investments is simple. It's to improve business operations and satisfy customers. And what this chart shows is that not only has investment increased steadily since 2017, but when you kind of aggregate all the different type of digital transformation investments, technologies, and services together, we're well over $1 trillion. It's a pretty insane number when you think about it. So you'd think, well, with all this investment, all this focus to improve business operations and satisfy customers, surely progress is being made. But the reality is businesses continue to struggle. And we've seen it in media and press. I've clipped out a few here examples so that you can kind of see like what kind of articles are pretty common. Harvard Business Review has a number of articles. In 2018, there was one called Why So Many High-Profile Digital Transformations Fail. IBM published an article in 2019, Why Digital Transformation Succeeds and Why It Doesn't. Salesforce, the CRM leader, currently has on their website a statistic that I thought was particularly relevant. Only 15% of companies have a unified view of customer data and the ability to make use of those insights. It's pretty astounding when you think about the volume of investment that's been made and the challenges that many businesses are still having, enough to make this a relevant media topic for business people to be discussing. And as a result, we at Talend decided to take a look more deeply into the reasons why. Why are these problems persisting? And ultimately, we ran a survey this past spring in March and April of 2021. And what we learned is a number of things, but two of the key statistics that I'll point out here include the following. First, 78% of executives have challenges making data-driven decisions. So again, with all that investment, how is it that more than 3/4 of executives are finding it difficult to make decisions based upon data? And then similarly, 60% of executives don't always trust the data they work with. So there's a fundamental trust issue at hand with businesses today. So when at Talend, when we see statistics like this, we ask ourselves, we think that everyone needs to ask themselves, are businesses solving the right problem? I think that there's been a ton of investment in digital transformation in terms of, CRM and business process automation, and certainly business intelligence and analytics, and now machine learning and AI, and so many other areas of investment shifting to the cloud. But is there something fundamental that's not happening at a deep enough level with the data so that it can be managed, governed, and extended out to the organization in a way where they're literate, confident, and trusting of the data? And we think that's the fundamental problem. And as a result, we've kind of coined a term around this called data health. And data health describes how well a company's data supports its business objectives. And that last point is really, really significant to us because historically, data management has been relegated to moving data from point A to point B. It's been all about the movement of data, and there's been some focus on the quality of data at the data level. But there's really not been a focus around how well data supports business objectives. And let's unwind that just a little bit. Peter Drucker has made many famous comments, written many famous, made many famous observations of the business world and such. And one of them is if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And the irony of this is that data is used to measure everything else, so you can manage all these other things, but we don't really measure the effectiveness of data. And yet we say things like data is the most important resource, or it's the most important asset to my business. And yet we're not managing it like an asset. And if we were, we would manage it like, say, people. People are probably the most important asset that we have within an organization. We know where they are, we know who they report to, we know their performance, we make decisions on how to staff and how many headcount to place in different areas to support different areas of the business based upon priority. And really, we don't have the tools in place today in order to manage our data in the same way. So we don't really know how well data in different data sets and things of that nature support our business objectives. We don't have the tools for them today. And it's so important because this is the future. This is where businesses need to go next. And data health is our vision for the enterprise to kind of bring it to life and help you understand how we think about data health. We think that the corollary to our own personal health is a good one to kind of understand what we need to do for our data so that our organizations and our data can be healthy. The first analogy I'll make is about preventative measures. Just like in our personal lives, we take preventative measures to stay healthy and to avoid health issues. We eat a nutritious diet. We exercise regularly. We schedule appointments on a regular basis with our medical providers. And all of these things are to prevent larger problems from happening down the line so we can lead productive, fruitful, healthy lives. And the same thing with data. Organizations need to have preventive measures in place around their data so that they can identify issues early and resolve data challenges very quickly before they affect business processes, teams, and such downstream at a later time. The second thing that we have at our disposal as people are treatments, effective treatments. So when we do discover that we're ill or we discover that we're injured, there are treatments in place and we know what to do and how to do them. So same thing with data. So suppose you do discover that there are issues with the data, there needs to be the effective treatments. Frequently it's in the form of things like transformations so that the data can be essentially fixed so that it can be healthy once again and ultimately fix and support the downstream processes that it's needed for and do that in a systematic way. Then the third thing is about culture, and it's about the common understanding that we have with our medical providers as far as the appropriateness of how we share information and how we work together. And you can see this in little things, like if your medical provider sends a prescription for you over to the pharmacy, there's certain regulations and approvals and permissions that need to happen in order for that transaction to take place. Same thing if your medical provider wants to refer you to another doctor for a second opinion. And again, if you want to look up your information on a medical web portal, personal web portal. So all those things have a culture of understanding of how to manage that information between the different parties that are involved. There's a way for me as the care receiver to understand the information that's being shared to me from the different providers that I work with, and all that. The literacy is all part of this culture that needs to be built so that there's effective engagement across all the different parties involved in a permission-based way. And that's really about creating an organizational discipline and around data care and maintenance. And that usually goes well beyond just a technology provider. It's a bigger picture type of a thing. And then the last thing behind me here is proactive monitoring and reporting. The ability to measure and understand what's happening at every stage of this process that we're describing, so that better business decisions can be made and organizations can perform at a higher level and ultimately build stronger customer relationships. So that's what we believe data health is to the future of organizations. Frequently you get questions like this one: is data health different than data quality and data trust? And the reality is that data health builds upon data quality and data trust. And the key difference is its focus on business outcomes. So just to kind of make sure this is super clear, data quality is foundational to everything. We need to have good data. Like, there's no question about it. And the reality is that as soon as you start pulling data in from any source, there can be quality issues. When you start merging data, frequently the structure of the data itself is not consistent, so that creates quality issues. There's any number of reasons why data could be of low quality, but organizations need to have the ability to clean it, to match it, to profile it, to monitor it, to enrich the data, to parse it, standardize it, normalize it. So all those things are super important. And you can't have data trust or data health without the ability to manage data at that very fundamental level. The next level down is really about data trust. And data trust adds quantifiable and intuitive measures over data sets. So it's not so much focused on the data fields, more about the data sets overall. And it's a little bit more subjective. It incorporates feedback from subject matter experts that are often the business people that work with and understand the data better than anybody else, that are basically ensuring that the data is valid. That the data is complete, and that they give it a sign of approval. And it can be in any number of ways. At Talend, we do it in the form of peer ratings. But there's other metrics as well. How discoverable is the data set? How much is the data set used? But all these are very subjective to help an organization understand, well, if the data is being used, if it's discoverable, if it's valid, if it has high peer ratings, etc., there's a high opportunity, there's a high degree of trust around that data, and that's a lot different than data quality. And then the step beyond that is data health, and that's having the tools and the ability to determine whether data contributes effectively to organizational long-term goals. And that's providing that consistent process and the shared culture that allows for targeted improvements of important data sets. So these are, you can see it builds upon each one, but these are kind of the ways that we distinguish data health from data trust and from data quality. And we've had lots of customers that have had a tremendous amount of success by focusing on each one of these areas. So Globe Telecom is a telecommunications company based out of the Philippines. They enacted preventive measures to automate data quality scoring and improve data cleansing. So that sounds very data specific, but here's why. Telecommunications in every market around the world is super, super competitive. and it's really hard to differentiate. And Globe realized that they can't just put another offer out in market, or they can't increase their ad spend, or they can't do all of the things that you might do in a different industry to try and capture a new audience. It's a very commoditized space. So how did Globe Telecom decide they needed to compete? They needed to lean into their data, and they needed to get better data, cleaner data, and they needed to engage their customers more effectively than the competition. So fundamentally, the data became the differentiator. And this idea of preemptively identifying problems and managing data so that it's effective before it went downstream, before it went to marketing campaigns, became fundamental to how Globe wanted to compete. So when you see things like automating data quality scoring and improving data cleansing, it was for a very specific purpose, and ultimately their efforts paid off. They were able to increase the number of email addresses in their system that they trusted. There were good email addresses by a huge margin. They were able to quantify data quality scores on a daily basis, which was previously monthly. So that meant there was better data on a more frequent basis, so they were able to make decisions and engage customers more effectively as a result, more often. And all of this led to then the ultimate business impact. So the higher ROI per campaign, like 30% reduction in cost per lead, 13% increase in conversion rate, 80% increase in click-through rate. So an amazing story from Globe Telecom and how they're managing their data and taking preventative measures to avoid problems downstream. So another customer, and I'll switch the conversation over to effective treatments, but another customer is Air France KLM, also in a highly competitive industry of air travel. And ultimately, they knew that the customer experience they provided to the customer, from booking all the way through to baggage pickup, needed to be differentiated. It needed to be connected. It needed to be compelling. It needed to be frictionless. And when you're in a situation where there are so many different touch points happening in real time through the customer experience at the most critical moment, when customers check in, arrive at the airport, deal with baggage, move through security, go to a lounge, get to the gate, check in, etc. All of that data needs to be compiled and centralized so that customer experience can happen flawlessly at scale. And they leaned into effective treatments in order to make sure that happened, so that they could effectively identify challenges with the data across these different touch points, make sure it was transformed as needed, so that the next step of the process, which was happening possibly just seconds later, was ready to go. And it had a huge impact on their ability to basically manage customer experiences at a massive level. So they're managing tens of millions unique customer experiences, and it's a lot easier for employees to access the customer information in the customer service roles that they have, and they're able to collect a lot more information as well. So this idea of effective treatments was very effective. It was very fruitful for Air France KLM. And then lastly, I'll talk about supportive culture. This is a Canadian company, SSQ Insurance, one of their largest financial institutions, but ultimately they wanted to make sure that they were managing and using their customer data in the most compliant way. Obviously, customer information is something that there's a necessary amount of permission needed in order to use it. There are regulations around how it's used and how it's managed. And essentially SSQ Insurance worked with Talend in order to ensure that not only were they able to centralize the information and manage it appropriately and govern it and ensure that they met regulatory requirements, but also in how they managed it and created the culture of data usage throughout the organization. In this case, their marketing organization. So the marketing organization previously had a hard time getting access to the right data. It was not as clear as it needed to be, but because that culture was created, marketing was able to move more effectively. There was a smoother working relationship between the data teams and the marketing organization, and that led to a 30% improvement in efficiency of the development teams. The new projects, marketing projects, delivered in 3 weeks compared to 12 months previously, and a threefold increase in the conversion rate of email campaigns. So great success overall for SSQ Insurance as well. So the key here is that data health is really a concept that sits between the data and applications that businesses are investing in and the business outcomes that they expect to see. Obviously, if you make an investment, you're expecting an ROI. A lot of organizations are struggling with that piece because the complexity of today's world and most organizations' IT systems and data architectures is that it's hard to get the right data, in the right format, format for the people, the users of different skill levels within the organization to use appropriately. And you need to have the ability to integrate data, ensure data integrity and governance, ensure sharing across applications and through APIs, put best practices around that data, and ensure that all users, of all skill levels, from data engineers to business analysts, have what they need so they can connect the dots, move quickly, and ultimately then deliver the outcomes that we expect with Customer 360 and so many other initiatives to deliver on the results, deliver the outcomes. So Talend makes data health possible, and we also connect all those Customer 360 applications to the Customer 360 use cases and outcomes that businesses expect. And we do it for other areas as well. It's relevant for business initiatives like governance initiatives, compliance and reporting projects, supply chain initiatives and procurement initiatives, logistics, manufacturing, so many more. And it's also super relevant for technology-driven initiatives like cloud migrations, software development initiatives, data ops improvements, and shifts to new processes around data management, AI and machine learning initiatives, so many more. So data health is critical to be at the center of all of these things. And ultimately, data health will help organizations get more value from their Customer 360 investments. It's going to drive those experiences that they want, to deliver the outcomes that they want, because it's comprehensive. It provides a unified end-to-end solution, and it provides an outcome for all the different types of users that really interact with data. So if you want to learn more, please attend the Talend demo session later today. Solve the data problems that kill Customer 360 initiatives. You'll see Talend in action. That's at 1:15 later today, and that's Eastern time. So I hope you join us then. I hope you found value in this presentation, and thank you for joining me.